Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Creative Thinkers. My name is Miguel Valenzuela, and we have a very special guest today. His name is David James Baker. He is a filmmaker. He is a producer. He is a writer, and he is also a, what would you call it, a real estate broker. So this individual is a friend of mine. He is an awesome person. I'm very, very happy to have him here as a guest. Welcome, David. How are you?
Miguel, thanks a lot. I'm doing great. It's so nice to see you. It's been a long time, but it's always awesome to see you.
Absolutely, my pleasure. So I'm glad you're here. I want to talk a little bit more about who you are as an individual. We're going to talk a little bit about creativity. We're also going to find out a little bit about your history. So let's find out. Are you originally from Santa Fe? Because I know you live there.
I am not from Santa Fe. I grew up in southern Colorado, which, as you may know, was part of New Mexico and part of Mexico and New Spain historically. But grew up in southern Colorado and have lived extensively in Southern California and New Mexico, and had the great pleasure of teaching abroad in several different countries.
That's awesome. So I think creatively speaking, you are an individual who kind of gets ideas from all over the place. How, growing up as a child, were you kind of inspired by things? Were there any individuals that kind of fed all this creative kind of thinking to you?
There was. I was in children's theater extensively, in community theater and children's theater growing up, and one of the people that influenced me a lot was a guy named Jeff Church, who was the director of children's theater in the small town where I grew up in Junta, Colorado. And the idea of playmaking and creating worlds was something that was just always part of my worldview and part of my experience.
And through him, do you think that that kind of pushed you into what you're doing today as an individual?
For sure. Telling stories, creating images, photography. I had another teacher as an elementary student, a woman named Joyce Estep, who taught me black and white photography and taught me pinhole photography. So always the idea of composition and content, and then developing framing and structure and ways to creatively express ideas and share those with other people has always been something that I just have loved to do.
That's really cool. So I know that you do a lot of things, but did you originally start studying that in undergrad?
In my undergrad, I did my undergrad at the University of Denver. So I did major in communications. And I studied speech communications, and I took theater and photography. So yeah, I think, those are always kind of the content communications part of me has always been pretty strong. Something that I always knew was there and always pursued in a lot of different ways, but those are pretty core, I think.
And I think that's interesting because the place that we actually met was up at New Mexico State University. We were actually in the grad program together. What was your experience there at NMSU?
I had completed an MA in media arts at New Mexico Highlands University. And before that, I had worked extensively in technology at UCLA and had worked for the Walt Disney Company. So one of the things that happened to me on my educational journey was just, although I'd worked a lot in technology, I wanted to get back to creating organic content and using things like video and painting. And I tried to pursue those things in my graduate education. In my MA, I worked on a project where I followed a group of American veterans to old battlefields in Vietnam and created a documentary called In Their Own Words, and followed their story. So I think I'm always following the story, and I go wherever the story takes me.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned that you kind of go with the story. So when you say go with the story, for me anyways, my interpretation is it's almost like you want to follow these individuals through individual steps that they have taken. Do you often find yourself kind of taking from your life and seeing all the steps that you've taken and then pushing that through into whatever it is, a book or a film or what have you?
For sure, I think that each of us has a world experience that is unique unto ourselves. And I think it's important as artists and as people that we recognize our worldview, we recognize our biases, we recognize strengths and weaknesses, but also that you come to a point in your life where whatever that meager, whatever that soft spot is that you might have, that you dive into that soft spot and you find out what that's about. And I think that's where a lot of amazing explorations and development happen, is that line between things we love and things we're afraid of.
And these things that you're constantly documenting through mostly documentaries, because that's what I know mostly about you. Do you feel that these things are very fulfilling in, I think, at a different level than what other people perceive? So like if I'm living my life, for example, I think, wow, I'm just alive and happy and whatever. But then looking at it from your point of view, you begin to distinguish all these little details within their life and the importance of why it is that you need to show these films. How do you perceive that? What's your idea on that?
I like the idea of in literature, we have realism, and then there's a movement of magical realism where the ordinary, or that which is ordinary, you look at something that's very ordinary and boring and uninteresting, and you look at it, and you look at it, you look at it closer, and suddenly what you see in ordinary things is magical, is transcendental at times, is amazing. So I feel like ordinary people have extraordinary stories. I feel that ordinary things have extraordinary histories, and I'm always interested in how something that's simple can be profound and meaningful. Da Vinci said that sophistication is that simplicity is the ultimate sophistication, and so I'm always trying to pursue an openness and to see things in a simple but not simplistic way, in a profound, true way, by looking, peeling a layer back, looking again, peeling another layer back, looking again, and continue to look, continue to explore.
In your opinion, those little intricacies that one discovers beneath these several layers, is that what ultimately makes an individual?
That's an interesting question. I don't know if I can say what makes an individual, but I know we are all profoundly influenced by each other and by our life experiences, and the good things that happen to us and the bad things that happen to us, the good things we do and the bad things we do. And we all have all of those things. And I think that's what makes the totality of us, is those things. I think that we have problems, we have challenges in life, and as artists, we're certainly, the challenges and the problems are the place where we have to go. We are maybe we're 50% of a problem, but we are 100% of how we think about a problem. We are 100%, I believe, in how we structure our own perception of things, and that takes a lot of work to think about. I'm still learning about that in my own life. I'm not so zen. I don't get angry. I do get angry. I have good things and bad things that happen to me, and I struggle with them. And my kid does something that I'm like, what are you doing that for? But I have to remember that how I want my child to act, I have to be there on the inside first, because like if I'm there on the outside and I'm not there on the inside, then it's easy to read through me, right? Kids are brilliant about this. So it's always, I think, a question of working from the inside out, and that's a principal way that I think about it.
I think it's very interesting that you are constantly showing us things through little tidbits of information. You don't just do it through film, you also do it through the writings that you have created through this beautiful book, Prayers of an Old Dad, which I have read, and it's just a wonderful piece that you have written. Tell us a little bit about the journey that you took in order to get to this book, and then maybe you can read us a little part of it.
Well, thank you. Prayers of an Old Dad is a culmination of a lot of things, and it's at different points in life we experience the perfect storm, and I think this book is really about seeking the truth, and the truth is not a fact, I believe. I know that I have my own spiritual practices, and I practice those daily, and I feel like, oh, I'm climbing a ladder, and wow, I'm soaring so high, and I'm really getting this, and I go a few steps up the ladder and I'm soaring above buildings, and I go a few more steps and I'm in a basement, and I'm like, what happened? I was up there, and now I'm down here. So the book is really about being in a place in life where a perfect storm hits you of social, psychological, emotional, financial, career, biology, where all of those things can hit us at once, hit our soft spots at once. So Prayers of an Old Dad is a kind of a journey of myself and my son walking across the desert over a period of a couple years, and recording those thoughts and prayers, and creating this book that I call Prayers of an Old Dad, Meditations on the Verge of Hope.
And one of the things that I read in your book, actually three things that I want you to hit upon, which I think are very, very interesting. For me, the whole matriarchal kind of idea, mothers, wives, that kind of aspect is very important. And you actually wrote two. You wrote about your mother and you wrote about your wife. If you give us the pleasure of reading this out to us and telling us a little bit of kind of details behind it, we'd be very, very happy to hear it.
Sure. There's kind of different sections and themes in the book. There's poetry about my father, because when I would be walking across the desert with my son, I would be thinking about my son, but I would also, everybody is somebody's son or somebody's daughter. You don't have to have children. You don't have to have children, right? We are all children. So I would certainly be thinking about my father, my mother, my wife, my son, my ancestors, thinking about passing rock carvings on rock walls, petroglyphs, thinking about the people that walked across that desert before I was there, picking up a piece of pottery in a river, in an arroyo, in the bottom of an arroyo, a piece of pottery, and knowing that their lives, that was a vessel that people fed themselves with. That was a piece of a vessel that generations, babies were born, elders died, young people died. They had all of those same things happen. So whenever I would be walking in the desert with my son, these are just things that I would consider, and I would generally get up early in the morning. I am usually up very early in the morning to create a space for me to clear my head, to pray, to meditate, to think about what I can do in that 100% of how I think about things, and to peel away layers anger, of lust, of deceit, to try to get to something that is more truthful, even if I feel like if I soar too high, I end up in the basement and I have to start climbing all over again, and invariably I do.
And one of the things that I think is interesting before you continue on to read is what I'm getting is that while you're kind of dealing with all of these things, past, present, future, you're also asking a lot of questions, which I think is something that a lot of people don't do. Can you just, before you read, tell us why it is that you question all of these things? Because I think it's intriguing.
Well, I'm always a little bit hesitant. I know I don't have the answers, and I'm always a little bit hesitant of these people who wave their hands and talk like this and tell you how you can lead such a great life. I mean, I don't want to criticize that's their path, but I have a lot of questions, and I think as an artist and as a creative person, as a thoughtful person, we need to ask a lot of questions. We might have the political leader that we love or that we think is more truthful, but can we ask questions about that to ourselves? Can we think about it in a different way? We all have our cultural baggage and bias, and that can either hold us back or inform us. And I want my biases to inform me, and the way that my biases, I think, can inform me is by asking questions about them, challenging the way that I think, and I think that helps me.
I think that it's very well stated that you said that by asking questions, you challenge yourself. And that may be the missing link. The fact that people don't want to ask questions, whatever it may be. It may be something very difficult to ask, maybe something very simple, but maybe they just don't want to find out what the answer is. But having said that, you do have two answers. One of them is a little bit about your mother. One of them is a little bit about your wife. And then we'll move on to something even bigger. But do you mind reading us those?
Sure. So I'm going to read from, this is on page 25. Mother who gave me life, the one who birthed me, the one who nursed me, the one who fed me, the one who raised me, the one who taught me, the one who fought with me, the one who fought for me, the one who never gave up, the one who birthed 5 brothers and a sister. May you rest in peace forever. Oh God, can I see you now? Mom, thank you. I love you.
Now, give us a little bit of insight, just very quickly, what you were thinking about while you were writing this. It seems like it's very broad.
You know, I love Our Lady of Guadalupe very much, and in fact, my son's baptismal name is Juan Diego, who had the vision of Our Lady of Guadalupe, and I love that idea because it's the mother. That story is the mother. It's the native. It's the lowest of what is then considered the classes of system who has the ability to see the mother because he is closest to the earth and closest to organic truth. My mother raised 7 children on her own. She worked somehow. I mean, it's so ridiculous. I think about how difficult I think it is to be a parent of 1 kid, and she did like 7 by herself. You know, it's like, whoa, I laugh now. It's just like, oh my goodness. And think about the problems that parents that we have today, which those problems are real. I don't want to, I'm not trying to say that they're not, but so she was a heroic figure in my life in terms of what she accomplished, and she got very little in the material world for what she accomplished, but she had the benefit of enormous love and from every one of her children.
I think you can't beat that. But another thing is maybe the correlation that you might make to your wife. Do you want to read us the wife?
Sure.
Not read us the wife. Read us what you wrote, making reference.
Okay. To my wife, partner and friend, we were young parallel travelers crossing in the galaxy, seeking alternatives to our past. We joined together as friends, and then more. You loved me as only you would. I loved you as only I could. We conceived a new life, our son. We tied ourselves together inseparably and forever, no matter how near or far. You are woven into me. May I always be grateful and never bitter. Now return to your water in your warm, happy, and free state with your laughter. May you love again and again and again. May your kindness overflow again and again. May you forgive again and again. May your heart open again and again. Oh God, I see you now. I love you too.
Beautiful. One other thing that you actually wrote was something that's more spiritual, more connected to God. And if you could read that for us and then maybe bring all those three subjects together.
Yeah, let me see. Is that the one that's, oh my God, do you know I'm here?
Yeah, page 35, I believe.
Page 35, let's see. Okay. Dearest God, of grace, of faith, of hope, of love, all loving and forgiving God, source of life, God of all things good and true, source of all things seen and unseen. In every tragedy, you are there. In every victory, you are there. Holy grace across time and space knows no sides and abides in the truth. Father of the sky, Mother of the earth, will you accept me? Will you forgive me of my false pretensions, of my deceptions, of my deceits? God of love, God of mercy, infinite, universal, one, incomplete, I am here seeking. Will you forgive me of my anger, of my lust, of my envy? O Holy One, how will you forgive me of my faithless shallow, of my darkest wallow, of my blindness, of my ignorance, of my unknowing? O God of grace, will you help me to seek, to see, to be, and to become all that is good and true? I am here now. May I be with you? May I have just one moment in human time? Will that be sufficient? Will I then turn on you and demand more? Will you grant me admission through unconditional acceptance or infinite mercy?
Another very, very well written passage. So the mother, the wife, God, for me anyways, are very much connected. I am, again, a child just as everybody is. My mother is very, very important. She is still alive, thank the Lord. My wife, late wife, passed away 10 years ago. So for me, these two kind of matriarchal figures are very, very important, as is my spiritual connection to God. Is that something that you bring together within your book, the connection between these three?
Yes, I think so. I think really what I'm trying to do, you know, at the opening of the book, there's a passage from a book that has influenced me called The Cloud of Unknown by an author that's anonymous, that's been lost. It says, remember that the nearer a man comes to the truth, the more sensitive we must become to error. And
Wow.
then my dedication, the dedication of the book, is that this book is dedicated to those who seek without seeing and who believe without knowing. And that's what I think the book is about, is that leap that we make in seeking truth and love in harmony,
while always asking questions. So another thing that you do is you actually are a real estate broker. So you deal with real estate all the time, which is a very, very hot commodity right now. Explain to us how you bring all of these kinds of things together, because you're a filmmaker, you're a writer, but then you also bring a production level to actually selling real estate. Talk to us a little bit about that, because I think it's very interesting, just the way and the dynamic with which you bring these together.
I was a teacher, and I fell into real estate by accident, by producing media for brokerages, and I still do that. And so I've produced a lot of content for brokerages. If you put David James Baker into Google, you'll find me pretty easily.
I'm sure they will, and they'll be pretty interested to know that you do a lot of everything. And the last thing that you're working on right now is actually a project that deals with the Gila. What is that all about?
I have been working on working with the Heart of the Gila conservation group, founded and led by a woman whose name is Patrice Muchnick, who is the mother of one of the 3 children who were doing an eco-monitoring project, flying in an airplane over the Gila from the Aldo Leopold Charter School in Silver City, New Mexico, and tragically died in a plane crash. And Patrice has taken her knowledge as a botanist and the gifts that her daughter gave to the world, her daughter Ella Jazz Kirk gave to the world, and we've created a piece about Patrice walking with 2 children along the Gila River, and how children see nature and what they see, and that's going to be available very soon for people to watch. So if you follow us on social media, or you follow Heart of the Gila on Facebook, you'll be able to see that film.
So having said that, here's the time where you have the opportunity to tell us how we can contact you. Give us your Instagram, Facebook, where we can order your book, whatever. Any kind of information you can give us, we'd greatly appreciate it.
Well, I'm always happy to connect with anyone, with people. If you put David James Baker into Google, you should immediately see my Facebook and my Instagram and my Twitter and my LinkedIn. I'm on all of those platforms, all the major social media platforms, including Pinterest, as David James Baker. The book Prayers of an Old Dad is available on Amazon.com. And so if you put David James Baker, Prayers of an Old Dad, that you should find the book pretty easily at Amazon.
Very nice. So, David, I wanted to thank you for giving us a little bit of insight into your world and who you are as an individual. I also wanted to thank you for being our guest. I hope you enjoyed yourself.
Thank you a lot, Miguel. It's always awesome to talk to you, and I follow you on social media, and I'm always moved by the beautiful objects that you create that are behind you right now. I recognize your paintings instantly, and I'm so appreciative that you would ask me to join you today.
Absolutely, it was my pleasure. So I wanted to thank everybody for joining us here at Creative Thinkers. Again, we are coming from our homes. Why? Because we are still in the middle of the COVID pandemic. So thank you for joining us, and please join us on all of our next adventures. Thank you very much. Thank you, David.
Thank you.